Hey guys, so today I want to make a video going over my multi-mirror semi-Val Lightning Strike character. So first we'll just do a simple Delirious tier 17 map and then a Uber Ball showcase to show the DPS. So yeah, this is mostly just to show how the skill looks while clearing, of course. Yeah, it's semi-infinite Val Lightning Strike. Essentially you have Val Lightning Strike up for like every single pack, but you just don't have it up permanently for bosses, and that's where you use your regular Lightning Strike essentially. It's very, very good for box farming. Extremely good for box farming because you can leave your Valorant strike up at every single box essentially. It also scales better with the more mob density there is. So the higher you juice, the better it is because you get more souls, which means the more Valorant strikes you can spam. So real quick, I'll just go to the boss. This is mostly just to show the map showcase with Valorant strike. It's very, very good. It's really good for stuff like Legion as well. But yeah, as you can see, these bosses practically instantly die. So yeah, let me quickly show a Uber Ball showcase just to show the damage. X-Arc is always a nice target dummy. Something around 300 million DPS with nothing up like conditionals, and then it's going all the way up to 500 million DPS when you have all your conditionals up. The boss dies in like, I don't know, 2 or 3 seconds. So yeah, let's go over the character real quick. Of course, I do have more gameplay showcase on my Twitch if you're curious what the character looks like in high-end juice maps. I just don't want the video too long. So this is a semi-infinite Val Lightning Strike character using a new enchant from the Silos of Calgary League. Probably won't be here next league, so it is pretty fun. Essentially what this enchant does is gives your Val skills no cooldown. So, you know, as long as you're killing stuff, you essentially have infinite Val skills. You don't need anything like Hate Forge or anything like that. And then opt to go for Hate Forge, as Hate Forge of Val Lightning Strike can make your PC lag and straight up crash as well. So yeah, I only went for the enchant, and the enchant is good enough by itself. You don't need anything else to make this work, just the enchant alone. So that's why we're dagger and using the squire, because your main skill has to be in your dagger, and this enchant is only on a dagger. So it's a 11 link setup with hits can't be evaded. This build can do every single tier 17 map mod in the game, any combination. It's all doable, although there are some that are quite annoying and do slow you down that you probably should skip. But yeah, it is all tier 17 map modifiers viable. If you're wondering which tier 17 map mod you should skip, because we'll see down too much, it's the no damage 3 seconds out of 10 seconds and the reduced action speed. The reduced action speed is not too bad if you get on something like Risk Scare, but if you scale a map modifier effect, like you roll on your map mod and then you put it in the map, it goes to like 5%, and it's just kind of annoying. It is doable. I've done those maps multiple times before, and they are worth doing if they have like 3% more currency or like 250% more scarabs. Otherwise, if the map is not very juicy, I'll just roll over it. But yeah, it is viable for every single map mod in the game. If you're wondering how to get reflect on this build real quick, all you gotta do is swap this Elemental Mastery for reduce reflected elemental damage, and then you take this Pantheon, and then you can also do Reflect maps. You do lose like 20% DPS, but as you can see, the DPS is extremely high that it doesn't really matter that much anyway. So let's go over the gear in the POB. So with Steel Skin, we have 38k Fizz max hit and 134k of our lowest LE. And without Steel Skin, we still have 100k LE max hit and 29k Fizz max hit. Very respectable numbers, especially on a blaster character where it's supposed to have very high damage and be very fast. So yeah, the lowest thing here is the Fizz max hit, which is fine. 29k is enough to survive every single tier 17 modifier combo, and generally when doing tier 17 juice maps, the most dangerous thing is Fizz's extra LE damage, which we solved by getting a ton of max res on this variant. And the reason why Fizz's extra LE is the most dangerous is because it goes through your spell suppression, as usually it's Fizz attacks that are killing you and not physical spells. So let's go over the gear real quick. So I'm going over the dagger and squire. It's an 11 link setup because the dagger itself has 5 links. Crit strikes, faster attacks, critical damage, elemental damage with attacks, and then socketed skills deal 4% more damage. That's 5 links. Then of course you have 3 links on your dagger and 3 links on your shield for a total of an 11 link setup. The helmet has rage support, faster attacks, and Whirling Blades. And my Whirling Blades does cost 0 mana. If yours does not cost 0 mana, then use Life Tap or Rage Support. Rage Support is just for the increased attack speed while you have at least 10 rage. And the helmet has 8% of physical damage from hits taken as lightning damage with reduced mana cost and implicits. And then Abyss Socket with mana reservation. So mana reservation is important, of course, as it allows us to fix all these auras. We're using Purity Elements, Arctic Armor, Tempest Shield, and Anger. So two 50% and two 25%. Besides that, helmet has a bit socket, of course, same with the gloves, but then resist in life. Amulet is the utmost, so this is the big change from last week, and we also have prismatic skin anointed here for 2% more max res. So we're getting 8% max res from our amulet and 2% from our body implicit, giving us a total of 10% max res extra, which makes us go to 85% max res, which is very, very nice. This helped us a lot with survivability and was the biggest change I made from last week, and now it makes the build very comfortable as well. Besides that, Utmost also gives some nice damage. It is less damage than Yoke, but you know, it is very well worth it for the defense capabilities this provides. And the big change I made to be able to fit in Utmost, as the resists are pretty tight, is I'm now using this 12 passive cluster. So I'll go over my tree in a second. But yeah, this 12 passive cluster gives us essentially 150% elemental resist at its 4%, and then it gets increased by the 35% use effect. So it's 5% on each node. 10 nodes total, so 50% all resist, which is, in other words, 150% increased elemental resist. So yeah, that allows us to fit in Utmost to make sure our resist isn't that bad. It also allows us to get the mana reservation on our helmet, which then allows us to get this physical damage from hits taken as light damage, which helps with this damage a little bit. Next is the Mirror Tier Ring. So just go over this real quick. This exact ring is not needed for the build. I actually did make a free Mirror Tier Ring for my community. So free as in it's free service. You still need the mirror yourself to copy it. I did make a whole POB with this ring as well. So if you are wondering, can I use this ring for the build? And the answer is yes. I'll link it down below. But yeah, just standard Mirror Tier Ring, crit multi on the implicit and explicit, +1 max frenzy, and the most important thing here, and intimidate. Negative cinematic cost isn't actually needed. If you don't have negative cinematic cost here, all you gotta do is spec 1 point right here, and that fixes your mana as well. Enemies, of course, enemies, practically doubles your damage. Very, very strong with any projectile skill. Anyone who has played it with enemies before knows how good this is. It's also very good for clearing. Random proj is in fact actually a benefit while clearing. So yeah, Nimmy's very nice. The chest, of course. So this chest provides a lot, and chest pieces in the new patch are extremely strong now. They have an insane amount of life. With this chest, I'm getting 203 max life, 8% PDR, 9% block chance, 22% suppression, 8% max life, and 10% reduced damage from crits per endurance charge. Chests are extremely strong, rare chests that are in the new patch. So the main thing here is the 10% reduced crit damage per endurance charge. This is from Essence of Horror, and this gives me 80% critical damage reduction, which is essentially crit immune because I have 8 endurance charges. Outside of that, the 9% chance to block is a unveiled mod under prefix. I went with the block chance just because having a little bit of block is pretty nice, although I'm not focused on it. I don't have any block from my tree or anything like that. I only have block from my shield. I also only have block from my chest for a total a 44% chance to block attack damage. Like I said, Fizz as extra LE attacks are the most dangerous attacks in these high-end juice maps. So having 44% chance to block and having a, roughly half the attacks that hit you block is very, very strong. It's a lot of essentially mitigation in these high-end juice maps. So I do like the block modifier here. Besides that, like I said, we're going to do all max res for the implicit, and melee hits have a 11% chance to fortify. Now you can also get 12% of physical damage taken as LA damage instead of the fortify on the implicit, and then you can spec into these nodes right here. But I didn't do this. I didn't find the 5 points extra to be really worth it, as it would be 5 total points to get this melee hits can fortify. You can do it if you want some extra physical mitigation, but yeah, I didn't find it to be necessary. I found my physical mitigation to be completely fine. Next is the gloves. The gloves, we're getting all our pierce from essentially, +2 pierce on implicit, and then +1 pierce on the explicit for a total of 3 pierces. And then the very important stat. Yeah, the reason why this non-valid strike skills target traditional enemies is very important is because it allows you to double hit with lightning strike, which would be a good time to talk about the DPS. So essentially how lightning strike works, it has a projectile hit and a melee hit. As long as you have this, non-valid strike skills target additional enemies anywhere on your gloves or on the tree, essentially allows you to double hit, as you could see earlier from the C1 XR kill. So yeah, how it works, your projectile hits once, then your clone hit hits once the melee hit, so you get 1 melee hit, 1 projectile hit, then they both return with nimmies at full damage, so you get 4 hits in total, 3 projectile hits, and 1 melee hit. Giving me roughly around 220 million DPS, and then of course an extra 40% DPS from my tincture. On POB it's bugged, it's not actually 85% more damage, it's something around 45% more damage. Give me around 300 million DPS, Of course, it also doesn't include my Valorant Strike, which you have 2 of. So if you also use 2 Valorant Strikes, and these also double hit with Nimis, and you use 2 of them, it's a roughly, extra 7 million DPS. Somewhere around, 350 to 400 million DPS is where this character sits at if you're running with everything up and having 2 Valorant Strikes up. Yeah, that's how Lightning Strike works, how the whole double hit works, and why you need that +1 anywhere. You have to be slightly away from the target. So if your target's like, let's say right here, you have to be a little bit, like 1 character away, I would say. Very easy to do. You can watch the replay and see how I did on Exarch, but yeah, you have quite a bit of leeway. Outside of that, these gloves have the tempo mod for fire resist and added fire damage against burning enemies. The cold tempo mod is better, the cold resist one. The reason why I'm using fire resist is for, resist purposes. It also has attack speed and 1 abyss socket, life, and damage while leeching. Since you're Slayer, you're always leeching, and then 4, you always have this increased damage while leeching. Very, very nice. And in the gloves, we have automation, steel skin, and life tap, just to make it cost 0 mana, of course. Everything costs 0 mana outside of my main attack skill, which is very nice when doing like no regen or reduced recovery maps. Integer, of course, so Integer is just by far the best high-end mapping belt. Nothing else to really say here. I get a lot of questions like, hey, can you use Mage Blood? You can use Mage Blood, but putting Mage Blood on this build just completely, I would say, gimps your character compared to Headhunter. Headhunter is just way better for high-end juice mapping when you get like 40 to 50 Headhunter buffs. You're also only using 2 Magic Flasks, using Progenesis, Dying Sun, and a Tincture. So Mage Blood is just honestly not that good on this build. Last piece, but also very important, is Ralakesh. So Ralakesh counts as having maximum all charges essentially. This is very nice for map modifiers that essentially steal your charges. If you don't have Ralakesh, those map modifiers you would have to skip, because then you have 0 endurance charges and 0 frenzy charges, which just would not be good. Besides that, it's just quality of life as well. You don't need to spec into any like charge duration, no charge generation, so you're saving a lot of skill points on your tree. And it's also the quality of life of always being at maximum charges. When you enter a map, you enter at 0 charges without Ralakesh, which gives you this point of vulnerability to where you might die or your damage is not going to be that great as well. So your Ralakesh is very, very nice on Slayer. Highly recommend. You can get like Talon boots, but I just don't think it's worth it, because then you have to spec so much more on your like skill tree to get endurance charge and frenzy charges and power charges as well. So personally, I just don't think it's that worth it. In the boots, we have Mark on Hit, Life Tap, Frost Blink, and Assassin's Mark. You can use other marks here, but I think Assassin's Mark is the best. Poacher's Mark is also pretty good. So yeah, that's about it for the gear. For the flask, we have a Jade, Silver, Progenesis, a Tincture, and a Dying Sun. Tincture at this point is not needed. It's just some extra burst damage, like 45% DPS I said. It is nice on very tanky map bosses, and that's the only time I really use it. I don't really use it for clearing. It does last for like 10 or 15 seconds if you can constantly hit a target though. So uptime is pretty good for that burst damage. It's more important on the lower budget setups because that damage actually matters on those bosses, but on my build, I'm just using it because like why not? You can also use a Sapphire Flask and a Topaz Flask over your Jade Flask and Tincture to have 90 maxers while mapping. That is also a pretty nice comfy setup. Your choice. I guess body armor, Anger, Arctic Armor, Tempest Shield, Enlighten, and Purity Elements for a 5-link aura setup, and then Blood Rage. Blood Rage is not needed. It's kind of a downside with Headhunter at times because it degens your energy shield, which is kind of bad, as you do get like 3 to 4k ES with Headhunter. That's a lot of defense that you don't have when using Blood Rage. So I'm not even sure if it's worth using, but yeah, I am using it because I have nothing else to put in this gem socket. So let's quickly go over my skill tree to not make the video too long. Essentially, the only important bits here is that we are using Abyss Jewels to solve all your flat damage because you're using a 11-link weapon. You have no flat damage on your weapon. That means you'd have to stack a lot of Abyss Jewels to get all your flat damage. So 4 prop Abyss Jewels with all flat damage. Same on my gloves and helmet, just all 4 props. You do need 1 Abyss Jewel with intelligence, and you do need 1 with strength. It's not needed, but allows you to use disenchant for explosive life modifiers. If you don't have strength in an Abyss Jewel, then you have to use the enchant on your chest that gives it reduced attribute requirements, and then you won't need strength on your Abyss Jewel. But yeah, the only mandatory Abyss Jewel is 1 with intelligence, which I have right here. Only 10 intelligence. You can get away with 9. And then I also need intelligence on 1 large cluster. Lethal Pride right here, the 13981 is by far the best Lethal Pride for this build. The reason for this is it has 2 rage on melee hits and 5 total double damage. So yeah, nothing really beats this. And then we get Intimidate from our ring, so we don't need Intimidate from our Lethal Pride. The 2 rage on melee hit is very nice, allows you to ramp way faster because rage does fall off pretty fast in this patch. It falls off like rather instantly. If you don't hit anything in 2 seconds, your rage will fall off in like 1 second. So yeah, very, very nice. Leaves of Pride. There are other ones you can use, but this is by far the best one. You can also anoint Veteran's Wrath over Prismatic Skin for more damage, more high uptime on your rage. But the Prismatic Skin is very nice for the auras, as we're 85% with Headhunter. You know, it's pretty hard to get max res without Mage Blood. And yeah, besides that, this is 12 Passive Cluster, which I talked about before. Very nice for this build. Only one of them is needed. And then for the other cluster, we are just doing a Feed the Fury and Fan the Blades. So we have 6 total projectiles. And extra projectiles are pretty nice when using Nimbys because your projectiles are fired in random directions. And then 8 projectiles with Dying Sun, which is pretty much permanently up during mapping. And not up during bosses, but you know, that's fine. Bosses die rather instantly. So last thing to talk about, I guess, is some tattoos and the all resist. So as you can see here, you might be wondering, you know, why do you have 151% cold resist and 142% lightning resist? You know, I'm well over cap. A lot of people may look at this and be like, why does he have that much? So the reason for this is for Eldritch Altars. So since we do Edict Altars, they are the best for high-end juicing. They give you up to -60% lightning resist and -60% cold resist. So you have to overcap, or at least almost overcap. You don't have to go all the way since it's a roll range from, I believe, 45% to 60%. So yeah, you do want to get as high as you can. So when you take these altars, your resist don't immediately go down to like 20%. This is why overcap for high-end juice mapping, it is practically mandatory, because if you don't, you take those altars, you're practically just 0% resist and you're going to die. So for cold resist, I get a lot of the overcap from the tattoos. As you can see, my tattoos here, we have a lot of cold resist tattoos because you're doing nothing else with your dexterity anyway, so why not make it into cold resist? And then we get some fire resist over here. And we get no lightning resist tattoos. You guys saw lightning resist purely through gear. And then for the other tattoos, we have all spell suppression tattoos to fix our spell suppress up to 100%. And then the last 2 tattoos we are using are these 2 blind tattoos. Blind is just very nice. Gives the enemy less accuracy, which technically gives you more chance to evade. So yeah, I think that's about it for the character. I don't think I missed anything. Hopefully I didn't. So yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below. But yeah, very good mapping character. One of the best you can play this league, if not the best. Not sure what I'll do from here, but I wanted to make a final update on this character. And yeah, that's about it.